Are you struggling with fear, depression, or anxiety? Are you in search of meaning and purpose? Would you like help navigating your current life circumstances? Tarot can help. Tarot is a powerful tool for healing, introspection, and spiritual awakening. The Esoteric Toolkit is a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. It consists of tarot, numerology, astrology, and the Hermetic principles in conjunction with the modern science of consciousness. The revelation and application of this knowledge gives you the tools you need to help master your life, organize your mind, and overcome depression, fear, and anxiety. Learn to manifest your dreams and come into alignment with your highest self and the universe. Book your private one-on-one tarot reading today. Click the link in the description or go to www.theorderofchaosmagic.com. You can also find monthly tarot packages, a private Discord community featuring shadow work, and Mercury retrograde support groups, and much more by becoming a patron at patreon.com/theorderofchaos.
The following message is transmitted.
Welcome back to the Order of Chaos podcast. I have a very exciting episode for you today. We're going to be talking with Jade from Ghost Club Paranormal, and this is our very excited for this very first paranormal research episode. Real quick, before we get started, if you would like to receive a completely free tarot numerology reading from me every week to your inbox, go ahead and sign up for my email newsletter. And if you really want to support the show, consider becoming a patron. All the links will be in the description. Jade, how are you?
I am doing well, better than ever. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm really excited to do this. Yeah, paranormal research is something I'm so into, but I don't get to participate in a lot in the way that you do it. That is partly because I'm a big scaredy cat, and partly because I'm busy doing other stuff, and mostly it's because I'm a big scaredy cat. But yeah, I'm super excited to talk about it with you and hear about your experiences.
There's nothing wrong with being a scaredy cat at all. I kind of say that I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. I'm usually the person that I usually investigate with somebody else, whether that's just a collaboration or bringing a friend along or something like that. I'm usually the person that's like, let's get out of here first. And I don't know if that's because I'm sensing something that they don't sense, or if it's just genuine, just like fear, like I need to leave now kind of thing. But I will say that if something makes you uncomfortable, not even within the paranormal, if there's any time, a point in your life where you feel uncomfortable, get out. It's the exact same with paranormal investigating. So yeah. I wouldn't feel bad about it.
I have in my own career, I've lived in 2 haunted houses. One, okay. I chose to be homeless rather than continue living there. It was so bad.
Wow. Okay.
And 2, I do occasionally encounter low vibrational negative entities in my own work as a tarot reader and as a practicing witch, but it's so uncommon. Most of the time, my interactions with the spirit realm are incredibly positive. I'm able to connect with recently deceased loved ones for my clients. I'm able to connect with my own spirit guides. I'm able to connect with my own dad, which is a big deal to me. And so most of my interactions are very, very, very positive. But you're like going out to these places where these things might be hanging out and you're looking for them. So my first question is, do you specifically go to places like when you go looking to interact with the spirit realm, what kind of interaction are you hoping to have?
Just kind of depending on the location, to be completely honest. If it's kind of more like an abandoned location that has a backstory, I like to connect with those that have made the biggest kind of like imprint on that building to see if they are still there or not. Because what I personally believe, again, it's all subjective, but what I personally believe is when you die, your soul breaks off into many different pieces, not just one piece and you go here, and I think some of that soul goes to an area where you have created memories, where you have really put like your energy into, whether that is a school or like a summer camp or something like that, or even like a church, you know. And then I feel like there's also like another side of that. If there's something like traumatic that's happened to you, and you know, it's not as nice energy, but you're still putting that out and it is something that happened, and it's, you know, a part of your soul could also go to that area. And then that would create more like a residual energy, like a residual haunting, like that what most people are familiar with. Yeah.
Yeah, probably what most people are familiar with is that exactly. And that was very succinct the way you put that. It's very, very in line with my own beliefs, and it's a very Buddhist sort of
Yeah.
outlook you've developed there. And I think it's, you know, nobody can say for sure. This is one thing that drives me crazy within this field, is none of us can ever say for sure. We can say what we experienced, right? And because what we're describing is non-physical, and we have to use language to describe it, you know, it's going to come out in symbols and feelings and, you know, vibrations. It's not going to be like, yeah, this happened and then this and then this.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to tune in to all of the things about you that are non-physical, like sound and what you're feeling and what you're thinking and all that stuff, because that is the energy that attaches to particular places. And I think that energy can attach to people and it can attach to places.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when someone dies in a way that is excruciatingly traumatic, or they had a horrifically traumatic life and die in the place
Mm-hmm.
where they had that life, then the residue of those emotions and that trauma and of that that person, that part of that person, kind of like you're saying, like you split off,
Mm-hmm.
but that part of that person, the pure trauma, like the residue of just the trauma and the negativity, becomes this egregor, or like tulpa ghost that's attached to a place or a person. And that is what most people would say is a haunting, is something
right
like that happening. And I think that that's also what most people who are talking about hauntings, that's what they're talking about. Right.
Yeah. No, a lot of people believe that, you know, it is these traumatic events. That's the only thing that can create a haunting. And that is absolutely not the case whatsoever. Like when you die, I mean, a part of you may go to an area where something traumatic did happen. But I mean, I would like to think it's almost like if anybody's ever told you to close your eyes and imagine a happy place, your relaxing spot, what place in the world would you go to? You know, for me, I have a couple of different spots, but I mean, those are the places that I would hope that if my spirit breaks off, it goes to those places. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's just, it isn't all negative. And we can come across positive spirits, and have done so many times in investigations.
Yeah.
And it is a nice like breath of fresh air when you're communicating with an intelligent, specifically spirit that is so open and warm and nice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing like a Ouija board and something, you know, a lot of people are like, Ouija boards, no way. Ouija boards, bad news.
I am one of those people.
Okay,
because I had a bad experience. It's not that I don't tell other people don't do that, it's bad for you. I just personally, it's the same reason I don't do drugs. Just I did that.
Yeah.
And it didn't go well.
Yeah, exactly. But it is that kind of like the way that you just described it there is perfect. You know, like you can have a bad trip on a Ouija board. But you can also have positive, you know, interactions with Ouija boards. And I've had a couple of like interesting experiences myself with Ouija boards that I didn't understand. That was actually the very first episode on my YouTube channel. Was I was like, I have to tell this story. And it was when a Ouija board kind of things went a bit weird, and I had to get like a priest around and stuff like that. And it was kind of an interesting story, but that also made me want to learn more about, you know, what can I do to prevent that again? Because I want to keep using, I mean, I've been using Ouija boards since I was maybe, I want to say as far back as like 9. Wow. Like I have been using Ouija boards a long time. Like one of my cousins showed me how to use one, and I just, you know, I was so into the paranormal at such a young age as well that I just didn't stop using it, you know? So when people do say like Ouija boards are bad news, never use a Ouija board. If they see me use it once, they think maybe it's my first time. And then they're like, nope, close it down. But honestly, like Ouija boards are amazing tools to communicate with the paranormal. A lot of investigations that I go to that isn't abandoned, the owners of these buildings, a lot of the times it's about 50-50. They'll say like no Ouija boards.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of like, dang, because that's always the place with like the perfect room to do a Ouija board.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, that's
but
like hiring an electrician and then say no pliers. Sorry, you guys can't use
right,
pliers.
exactly,
You know, if
exactly.
that's the tool that you use and you're there to do a job, right? I totally understand. I do. I understand the fear.
Yeah,
But I think that, you know, if that's the tool that you use, if that's your tool, then you need to be able to use your tool.
yeah,
I
a
mean, to a
thousand.
lesser extent, people feel that way about tarot. A lot of people, and it
Mhm.
comes more from the religious, right? Like tarot is evil. You can't do that. God says no.
Right.
It's more that stuff than the genuine like fear that I have of a Ouija board.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. It's all, and I say this with everything. You have to experience it first for yourself. You know what I mean? You have to experience it first, and then make a judgment. You know, I'm not telling everybody to go out and start using Ouija boards. Like, if that's not your thing, it's not your thing. Like, but you got to remember, like back in the 60s, that was like a normal thing to do on a weekend. It
Yeah.
was like invite your friends around, let's do a Ouija board. It was actually you, the whole, oh God, I'm like going into like the origins of the Ouija board, but
No, do it. Let's do it. Yeah.
it was used for like almost like a romantic type thing. And basically like back in the day, like you would sit with your partner. This is when it was originally invented. You would sit with your one partner across from you and put the board on top of your lap, and your knees would touch, creating the table. And that was kind of like, if you liked somebody,
Mhm.
it was like, whoa, our knees are touching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
And it's an
so
exciting thing you're doing together.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was kind of like Ouija foreplay. Ouija
Yeah.
foreplay. It was for back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ouija board was an important part of the spiritualism movement.
Mhm.
I went to a spiritualist church once. It was a very interesting experience. Something I'd actually like to repeat again. I think that movement was really cool. I think everything about that era is really cool and beautiful. But I love the sort of like that movement in particular really did embrace both the paranormal and the spiritual and said like these are the same thing. You're just looking at them from two different perspectives, and I think that's super duper cool. Here's a question for you: have you ever, in your Ouija board use, encountered Zozo?
No, I haven't. I'm not. See, I've not really looked into Zozo too much because I am one of those people, even though I'm a paranormal investigator, this doesn't make sense. But I'm just like, if I don't look into him, then it's not in my
It's not in
head.
your
You know
head.
what I
Yeah.
mean? Not that I'm saying that. You know what? There is, people that think it is like mental when you're moving the planchette across the board and things like that. Um, I don't believe that to be true, but if there is a slight chance that that is true, I don't want to look into Zozo in case now
Yes.
it's in my head and something happens on the board with Zozo, and I do genuinely summon Zozo. If that's
Yeah.
if that's yeah,
That makes
it's
sense. I'll tell
yeah.
you my perspective on it. I think that when people say it's all in your head, they don't understand what they're saying
Mhm.
precisely.
Yeah.
I would say that the spirit realm is largely comprised of what we would consider to be the same energy that thoughts are made out of.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that it's in your head and you're making it up. It's to say that the spirit realm is comprised of all the elements of ourselves that are non-physical. Again, sound, thoughts,
Yes.
emotions, those things in another dimension. And let's say the fourth dimension. I'm not going to argue about numbers of dimensions with anybody, but let's say the fourth
Yeah.
dimension, or what is commonly referred to as the astral plane. That is a physical place that is made out of what we think of as mental energy. So that's how I think of it. So when you say it's all in your head, that's a huge simplification of what I kind of think is going on here.
Yeah.
And it's also to
I
say that
mean,
you don't have like in your head, like you don't have control over what's going on in your head most of the time. And so I do warn clients who have things like spirit attachments pretty frequently that the doorway to out there is in here. So mind
uh-huh.
what you put in there.
So true. So true. Like, and it is all about what you believe in as well. Like, and
Yes.
as you said, like yeah, you have to, the spiritual world and your energy, they work hand in hand together.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of understanding the paranormal right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you feel like you have well, this is usually what I tell people, and again, I'm not like a professional in this sense, but if you feel like you have a spiritual attachment or anything like that you want gone, like a negative spirit in your house or whatnot, I always say, do what like you believe in, if that makes sense, like to get rid of it. So there's like Native American ways to get rid of a spirit, there's like Christian or Catholic ways to get rid of a spirit, like and just do what you feel most comfortable with, because either way isn't wrong, you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
that was one thing when I'd done the Ouija board and I wasn't too sure what to do because I'd never experienced something as crazy, come out from a spirit board. But one thing that I was just like shocked about was I turned to a lot of paranormal pages. This was right before Ghost Club. I had no connections with the paranormal community or anything like that. Only a small local group that I would go to meet up with. I asked them, and everybody had a different way: burn the board, break the board. You know what I mean? Like bury the board. And it was like, well, what way is right? Like, what do I do? Like, because everybody's given me different, things to do. And then when I realized that, and this is really when I started to properly, do my research on it and things like that, I started to realize it's actually in the way that you think.
Yes.
And if I feel like there's something in my house, I have to address it openly and have a conversation with what's in my house. As weird as that sounds, but that was the way that I dealt with it, and it left. You know what I mean? The
Mhm.
second I said, "Listen, like you have to leave," like, and this is scaring me now, and that's not okay. Like I don't know if it was something dark or anything like that, or I don't know if it was just somebody that I may know who has passed playing jokes on me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I just had to say, you have to leave because like I'm done with this now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that you have to believe in the words. If the words
Mhm.
are empty, they're not going to have any power. If you really believe what you're saying, then those
Yes.
words are going to have power. There's an axiom in the particular branch of magic and metaphysics that I'm involved in called chaos magic. The first rule of chaos magic is that nothing is true, everything is permitted. And so, what that means to me at least, is that it doesn't matter what symbolic language you're using, what language you're speaking, as long as you believe in it and you're anchored to it, and you allow that to be the language that you speak. Like people around the world communicate. We have many different languages. Many
Yeah.
different languages work with the spirit realm as well. But
Yeah.
you have to speak the language that you speak. If you try and speak some other language, it might not have the same effect.
I mean, totally, because that's another thing. That's a question that I get asked quite a lot, to be honest, is um if, let's say for example the spirit box is on and it's sweeping through like radio wavelengths and, static electricity, and words come through and it's answering intelligently to my questions. A lot of people are like, why does it only answer in English? Or just any other kind of thing, like if it's spirit boards, for example, why is it answering your questions in English? What if it's like, how are all the ghosts that you talk to English?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, this is just what I've experienced, but I believe that, spirits, they connect with us how we know how to connect with each other, you know what I mean, which is through English. And I also believe as a spirit there's no language barrier.
Yeah.
You have unlimited access to languages, I guess, but yeah, they basically, spirits will connect with you in a way that you'll understand. Yeah.
Yes. I will say I've experienced one exception to that. It was very
Yeah.
cool. This is something I am still working on. One of my spirit guides, and I'm not going to say which one right now because, like I said, this is something that's still ongoing that I'm trying to sort out. But one
Yeah.
of my spirit guides about a year ago gave me a mantra, and I do not know what language it's in or what it means. I'm still researching and trying to figure that out. I think it's Sumerian. It sounds like Sumerian, but it's going to take me a while to sort that out.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing is I think since that happened, there's a reason for it though. You
Yes.
don't know it now, but there's a reason that it's in a different language and you have to figure that out,
Exactly. Yes.
and it will
that's
make sense.
yeah.
It will make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's something I've just been pondering on for so long. And I know that it's important and it's a big deal. And most of my communications with that particular spirit are in English. But this one was different. So like you said, I know there's something special about it. I just don't know what it is yet. And because I am a big scaredy cat, I have not yet like worked with it. I want to find out what it means first.
Right.
And actually my closest friend speaks 14 languages and he doesn't know. Because again, I think this is an ancient language.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just something I'm working on. And that's the kind of thing, that kind of treasure hunt that makes this world so much fun and so cool. And those synchronicities that happen when you open yourself up to the spirit realm in any way, shape, or form, life gets more fun and more exciting.
Totally.
A little bit scarier for sure. But
it is all about the adventure though. And I would say don't do it like if you're not having fun, because it really is all about, it's the passion for it, just everything that goes into going out to explore, to investigate with your friends, being outdoors, getting fresh air. Like, well, sometimes you're in a basement, but it's an adrenaline rush. It's exciting. Like, it really is exciting. It's an adventure, and this is the way that I look at it. It's a total adventure. If I get something, if a spirit wants to communicate with me, which happens more times than not, then great. I feel like I'm confident at this point in investigating that I can go into a room and I know how to open myself up instantly to spirits.
Yes.
And once I got that down, like, that's when I'm like, this is great. Because when I first started off my YouTube channel, sometimes I would go to places and really nothing much would happen. And I would always conclude like the end of a video, whether a place is haunted or not. And sometimes it was just like, no, this place isn't haunted, but thanks for joining me. Yeah. And then as the episodes went on and the more I opened myself up and started doing more research, sometimes I would say at the end of the video, all right, well, this was a great investigation, but I don't think there's anything here. Go back, editing, there's like 20 things that happened, or there's like so much more than I even remembered happening, Yeah. And I'm like, I need to stop, ending my videos like that, because I'm actually really capturing stuff here. Yeah. And now I just don't even do that. And every place that I go into, there's usually something there. So yeah.
My personal belief is that the spirit realm is comparable to the ocean, and we're comparable to land. Like that is bigger and more full of life than we can really imagine. It's not, ghosts are not few and far between. They're everywhere. They're freaking everywhere. And that actually brings me to my next question for you. Why is it that you think, what's your own personal thought process on this? Why is the spirit realm so interested in communicating with us? I mean, obviously we're interested in communicating with them too, but like, you almost never don't get an answer. Like, it seems to me like they're over there like waiting for us to make contact.
Yeah, what? That is actually such a good question. I've never been asked that before, but it really does get you thinking, because it depends. Like, because spirits all don't have to have left like a physical human body. You know what I mean? So maybe those kind of spirits are curious about us. Mm-hmm. Like poltergeists, for example, they're said not to really be human, but more just kind of just energy. And maybe that's why they mess with us so much. Or maybe they go, if I move this over here, will they know that I'm here? Like, do they see that? Same with us. You know what I mean? Yeah. We ask spirits to do things all the time. As far as, sometimes it could be a number of things. I've personally seen a full-bodied apparition, I would say twice now. The first time was when I was younger, and she gave me a message. And this is why I believe in the paranormal. Ask any one of my family members, everybody remembers it. It was during the day. Like, I mean, it really sparked the whole interest in me. That was the day that I found out about ghosts, it was crazy. But yeah, so I've seen the first full-bodied apparition that I saw. I had lost my dad, And I was shouting on him, saying, Dad, where are you? And I see this woman coming towards me, and she's floating. And this was back in Edinburgh in Scotland. And she's floating towards me, and she's got black rags over her. And she says, Dad, walk up the street. And then so I kind of like, I'm standing there in shock. She's getting closer to me. I run into the house and I freak out, and I'm getting my stepmom and my sister out. And I'm like telling them, like, I just saw, like, I'm trying to explain what I just saw. And and then after that, my dad came back. I said, where were you? And he says, I just walked up the street. And the exact same words that she had said. So even though she looked kind of scary, now I'm older and I have more of an understanding. I'm like, wait, she was helping me out. Like she just saw like a young girl like calling out for her dad.
Mhm.
And she was just saying, hey, it's just up the street. But unfortunately, she looked like she was from like the 1600s. So,
Wow.
you know, and then the second full-bodied apparition I would say that I've seen is it was in the church house episode, Unholy Church House episode that I done about 3-4 months ago. It's an abandoned church in Los Angeles that literally nobody knows about. And I was in the basement, and I remember when I'd done the walkthrough of that place, there was this one specific room in the basement that the energy just felt off. Like, and that was, you know, that's what I'm saying with your body is the best tool on investigations, because if you can walk into a room and you're just like, whoa, like, and then that's kind of like, that's usually when I go, I'll come back to this room a little bit later on. But I
Yeah.
make a note of it. I have to come back here because something wants me here.
Yeah.
And so my cameraman, he left within 30 minutes because he got scratched 5 times down his back.
I was going to ask about that because that was one of the most shocking episodes of your show. It's a really
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah, it left me questioning a lot, like a lot. And you know, I've even lost friendships over that episode.
Really?
Yeah, just from people's personal beliefs on the
Oh.
paranormal, and saying you can't put that out. That's dark. Like that's not what we stand for. Like we're trying to show people that the paranormal isn't all scary. Like when you
Oh,
turn on your
Lord.
TV,
It is what it is, though.
yeah, like yeah,
And it certainly can be scary.
yeah.
Wow.
It really can be. And to say that the paranormal like it isn't scary, it's you. If I saw a big dog outside my window right now with drool coming out of its mouth, I would freak out. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's normal, and things can get scary. And I think a lot of people are not so scared of the paranormal, but just a little bit more excited by it. I don't know if that's just my kind of view on it, but I think that's why people like to watch paranormal shows. It's not because it's like they're getting scared by it. I mean, it's, or maybe it is. I'm not sure. I don't really watch too many paranormal TV shows, but all I can say is that episode in general, like, it changed my entire outlook on the paranormal, and that there are much darker forces. Because when I went back down to that basement and my cameraman had left after getting scratched and feeling sick, I was down there and I had a spirit portal on, and I hear light come through. And in that exact moment, my infrared light turns off. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. I turn around to my 2 friends in the basement, and they're looking at me. And there is still some light from my friend Victor's camera, so I could see slightly. And as I turn around, I just see this woman standing behind my friend Jasmine, and she's just looking right at me. And it was like that stare was just like, get out. Like she did not want me there. And I knew that, like, and the second I saw that, I had to do a triple take. I was like, wait, did I see that right? No, it's still there. What? And then my light came back on, and I was like, I started freaking out. And then that's when I decided to leave. It's just, you know, moments like that. I've done so many investigations, but is that out of my league, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand it to the point where I can say, everybody stop, what's your name? You in the
Yeah.
corner, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because your body just takes over at that point, and it's unbelievable, you know, it really
Well,
is.
I do think that that's kind of the point that you and I both need to get to, is where we can stop and say, hey, tell me your name. Now, in terms of things not being scary, that's ridiculous. That's insane. Of course it's scary.
Yeah.
I have spirit guides who I know for a fact have my best interests in heart fully, and they scare
Yeah.
the piss out of me, because it is they are powerful entities that
Yeah.
talk to you. I mean, I'll go deep into meditation and they're talking to me loudly with big booming voices, you know, and it's a little bit scary, especially because I tend to work with entities that are considered darker
Yeah.
by some, but that dichotomy is nonsense. That, and
Yeah.
something you see all over the spiritual world, is there's the good guys and the bad guys, and it's not black and white like that. It's the whole spectrum and everything in between. And you know, this philosophical things, think about metaphysical, philosophical, all of that, you know, and whatever works for you, that works for you. But what works for me is working with entities that are considered to be darker, and they are kind of scary, but that's
Yeah.
part of, you know, what I'm doing. And I feel personally that it's my calling to be you know, as close to a master occultist as I can possibly be. And I know that I can't get there if I'm forever afraid of a Ouija board. You know, it's
Yeah.
something I'm going to have to face eventually. And this was true with working with the Goetia too. I avoided it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But then I started working with it. Now I work with those entities and it's going really well. It's just
Yeah.
we you know, level up in steps, because there's so much to this, you know, and there's always ways to push deeper and deeper into that realm.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you there. I really do. I think that sometimes you have to push through to understand. You can't be a master at something, or even give advice to somebody if you've never been through it before. You
No.
know what I mean?
Yes.
That's the way that I like to think of things. And if you need to experience that Ouija board energy, I guess, to believe it. It's just like seeing a spirit with your own eyes. You know what I mean? Like, if I had never seen that ghost when I was younger, I may not even be interested in the paranormal. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And a
Mhm.
lot of people who watch the episodes and just into the paranormal, a lot of people haven't even seen a ghost. They're just into the paranormal, and the some people want to, some people don't. Like, I like to say, I don't want to see one every investigation. I know that that's
Yeah.
really bad. Well, to some that might be bad, because it's like, then what are you doing it for? You're supposed to be out there proving and things like that. But I only go there for myself. I know that that sounds selfish, but it is the adventure and things like that. And if I capture a spirit that wants to talk, I think that that's the coolest evidence for me. That's the evidence that I enjoy the most, is when you hear a disembodied voice, or when you hear something actually out loud saying
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Because that, to me, we were talking about, you know, standing your ground and saying, wait, who are you? Or getting the heck out of there. If a spirit appears to me, and usually they don't look great, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's the scary part. Then I feel too uncomfortable, I have to leave. But if I hear something, I'm like, that sounded like it said this, or that sounded like a child. Let's try and communicate more with a child. Like, you know, there's so many things that can happen on an investigation, and you have to be prepared for anything at any given time, because the energy can flip like a light switch. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, and it can go from very pleasant to very scary in a matter of seconds. Okay, so when you talk about seeing a ghost, because this is something that I should say, I've never seen a ghost. I can see in my mind's eye the same way I can see an aura. I can see my client's aura very well, but it's not the same sight that I have with my two eyes. Now, some people can. So I'm just what is it for you?
It's so I don't see people's auras and stuff like that, so I
Mhm.
think that that's really cool, because I have always wondered about that. But yeah, no, it's straight two eyes right there,
That's so
like you would
cool.
see a person just, you know, like strolling right by you.
Wow.
Um, Yeah. It
I
was
have
it,
noticed amongst my friends that so there's clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance. I can't think of what the one for vision is called now. It just totally slipped my mind. But the ability to see things.
mhm.
I could be totally wrong about this, but I have noticed it's way more prevalent amongst my female friends, and with my male friends, they're more like claircognizant or clairaudient, like I am. I don't know why. I don't
Okay.
know if that's a thing. It's just an observation.
No, yeah, no, that's a good point that you make there. Yeah, I'm honestly not entirely sure. I feel like in the US, I don't really know many people with like ghost stories where they've actually seen something.
Mhm.
I think that it's a lot more common in Scotland, where it's just like, ancient lands. But um when I was growing up, everybody had a ghost story. I felt like everybody had seen a ghost. Like, so it's just really interesting. So back over there, it was men, female. Your grandparents like would come in. Oh, I just saw a woman. She came right up to me. She talked to me. I thought that's weird. It turns around, gone. Like things like that. Yeah. Sorry. Go
Do
ahead.
you think that is an issue of geography or culture? Do you think that, like, essentially, do you think that the American culture is so tuned out to spirituality and the paranormal that they just can't sense it, and that's not true in Scotland? That's my first thought.
I honestly, I think it's a history thing. I think it's just the older a building is, or the more energy that's attached to that building or place. I really do think that it's that. Um, there's just so many good places over there, and a lot of people's homes are haunted over there. You never, I mean, there are definitely haunted homes over here as well. Like, don't get me wrong, but I feel like over there, it's more like they didn't ask for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's just something in my house, what's happening, and it's just total normal people. The homes that are haunted over here, I feel like it's more like the person that the energy is attached to.
Mhm.
And that's what creates a haunting. And I'm not saying that that's that for every single home in America.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that that's my understanding of it now, is that more modern day hauntings are not so much, oh, a whole family was murdered in this house. I live in a house that's 300 years old, and because that doesn't happen anymore. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because, we can prevent that from happening in the modern day.
Mhm. And I think
All
you're
these
right.
crazy murders and things. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're onto something, because I'll tell you the two places that I experienced haunting while living in the
Mhm.
United States. I live in Canada now.
Okay.
It's a very unhaunted country. But in the States, I lived in New Orleans and I lived in San Francisco, and those are the two places where I experienced hauntings, and they were in much, much, much older buildings. I used to
Yes.
be a cook at a restaurant that was in a 300-year-old building in New Orleans, one of those old mansions that had been a brothel and had been all these crazy things, and a bunch of people
Yeah.
had a crazy history. It was directly across the street from Lafayette Cemetery #1, and so because it was built into a mansion, if you wanted to get something from dry storage, you had to go 4 stories up and go into the attic, and no one ever wanted to go.
I can't imagine they did.
Nobody wanted to go to the. Somebody would say, "Hey, we need sheet paper," and it's like, not it, not me.
You guys
um,
should have just like lit the path with like disco balls and like
it was
make it
so
a happy
creepy that
area.
it seemed like intentional. Like there was a skinny doorway that you happen to open to go creak, creak the whole way, and then this tall, skinny stairs you had to walk up that would creak, and then this room with like one of those circular windows and poor lighting. It was
It
like a
does
haunted
sound very
house, man.
spooky. Yeah, yeah.
And the other one, this is the place I lived in San Francisco, with friends, and it was only the upstairs that was haunted. It was so strange, because the people downstairs were like, "You guys are crazy," but the people upstairs were like, "This place is fucked." It was crazy, and that was the place where I chose to move out, rather than, like, I didn't even know where I was going to go. It's just like, I can't be here anymore.
So what happened though? Like what brought you to that point?
Well, here is the last straw, and it's very similar to your story, except that this person was not on our side. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
First of all, my former partner and I both had several panic attacks just in the house. Just, we had no idea why. Like, just the anxiety and the energy of that house was scary. Okay.
Yeah.
There was something in the closet, and in my mind, because like I said, I don't see them, I see them in my mind's eye, so I don't know how much of my own imagination I'm imparting onto that, but it was a girl, I think. and it would just watch you. It would just stare at you, intently stare, and make you very, very, very uncomfortable. You could feel it. And so me and my former partner both suffered with this silently. We did not talk to each other about it for 6 months. And then when we talked about it, we're like, oh my God, you see it too? Like,
Oh my
what the
God.
fuck is this thing? Right. And then it started getting worse after that point. So then
But you
anytime you would
acknowledged
take,
it.
yeah, because we acknowledge it. So then
Yeah.
anytime you would take a shower, and that place is a very old, tall, full house style San Francisco building, had a glass shower. And anytime you would take a shower, you would hear a loud knocking on the glass door, and no one else. The locked door is locked,
Right.
and it happened every single time to everybody that lived upstairs. So then the last straw, I got home from work one day, and we had to go do something. I don't remember what it was. It's many, many years ago. And so I went upstairs. We lived in the top, like this, like I said, tall house.
Mhm.
I went upstairs and I was just like getting off my work stuff and all this and all that. And she called me, my former partner, and she said, "Hey, where'd you go?" And I said, "What do you mean, where'd I go? I just got home. I'm upstairs. We got to go do this thing." And she's like, "What do you mean? You and I just walked downstairs?" I'm like, "No, I just walked upstairs." And she's like, "No, you and I both just walked downstairs together." And I'm like, "No, we did not." And that was it. We moved out the next day.
Wow. So was she walking downstairs and felt like the presence?
No,
Like,
she says that we were like that. Her and
so she
I
saw
walked down.
you.
She saw, like, we're holding hands. That's her story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that is really scary as well, because if something can imitate another person like that, I do not blame you. I would leave too.
Yeah.
Like
And the
that's
energy
actually
was, the
really,
only word I can use for it is malicious. It was
yeah.
malicious energy that was in that house. It wanted to harm us.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
That's kind of that's a little much. Definitely. But then there's also kind of theories that, I mean, another theory, which isn't, I don't really know if this is paranormal or not, but like time slips.
Oh,
You know what I
dude,
mean?
totally. Yeah.
So
Totally.
what, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of, you could also see a bit like that as well. Because I remember when I was younger, um, me and my dad, we've always had this. My dad's moved over to America when I was like one, and we've always had this like spiritual connection,
Mhm.
and we have the same dreams as each other. Like when I was in Scotland growing up, like we would literally visit each other in dreams.
That's so cool.
He was the one, he came over to visit, that's when I saw that ghost, and she says dad walk up the street.
Mhm.
Like we've had lots of weird
So
experiences
he's
like
the one with
that.
the spirit attachments.
He has to be
Ah.
like, really going far back to that point. Yeah, like I can't remember where my train of thought. Oh yeah. So it was, I was younger. I remember I was like really, really excited. He was like back in Scotland, and it was like the first day he was there. We were at my nana and granddad's house, and the way that the house was set up was like the living room was in the middle, and then there was the kitchen, and then on the other side of the living room there was a staircase. So if you were going from upstairs to the kitchen, downstairs, you would have to go down the stairs through the living room into the kitchen. Same, if you were in the kitchen, you wanted to go upstairs, you have to go through the living room upstairs. And so I'm sitting in the living room, and he goes upstairs to, settle in and stuff like that, put his suitcase away. And I'm downstairs, and I'm just waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm looking at and I see him go out the kitchen upstairs, and I'm sitting there, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And I'm like, God, he's been up there for a while, but I'm not messing about with anything. I remember like, I was just staring at the staircase, and all of a sudden I hear his voice in the kitchen, and I'm like, wait, what? And there's no way to like get around the house, like to the back or anything like that. And I'm like, he's in the kitchen, and I go through and I say to my dad, I'm like, Dad, how did you get into the kitchen? And he's like, wow, what do you mean? And I was like, you just went upstairs, and I've been staring at the stairs waiting for you to come down, and you didn't come down. So how are you in the kitchen? And I always remember he turns around, he goes, you know what? I don't ever remember walking downstairs. Like, and he's like, and it really freaked him out. It was like a moment of realization. He went, I can't remember walking into this kitchen. Like, and he was weirded out by that as well. And I think that these like weird kind of like time slips are real as
They
well.
totally
So,
are. They totally are.
but if you didn't
Time.
remember, walking down them steps, and that could have been something different. Yeah.
Whatever that was, I'm not gonna, I don't even, it was so terrifying, and it was such a bad time in my life and in our lives that I just don't want to go back and revisit it.
Yeah.
Um,
But that left when you guys moved out. That
no, it followed us for a little while.
Yeah, that's
and we
no
went
good.
from hotel to hotel trying to get rid of it, and it followed us to about 3 hotels.
Was there anything in particular that you done to get it gone for good?
I was not, this was over a decade ago, and I did not have the skills that I have now. Now I would know what to do. This is part of the reason why. Now, I was still deep into occult research at that time in my life, but it was all focused on magic. And again, the kind of magic that I practice initially for the first, because I started when I was 15. So from between 15 to about 33, I practiced like very rational atheistic magic, if that makes sense. I wasn't really connecting to the spirit realm. It wasn't until I had a very powerful spiritual awakening at 33 that it opened me up to everything else. And then all the knowledge I had been accumulating my entire life, like connected, and I got it. But until then I didn't get it. So and it was scary.
That's I think that's like a lot of younger, like teenagers and things like that who are into the occult, that's how most of them start off. You know what I mean? You don't really get it until afterwards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's a tremendous amount of information and metaphor to cipher through, like to really understand. And then, so you spend a decade or so, I don't know, maybe you're a super genius. Maybe it doesn't take you a decade. It took me a decade to finally say, I know for me what I believe is happening here, and I can explain it to people, and I can, I wouldn't let myself be a professional tarot reader up until I really said, I can explain this in a way that works for me. I'm not saying I'm a scientist. I'm not saying I have proof. I hate that word because nobody can really prove anything. It's we're dealing in the realm of belief. But, when I finally got to that point after a decade of saying, okay, I know, at least I've packaged my own beliefs in a way that they're coherent. But I know at that point, they're still just my beliefs, right? There's other ways to explain all this stuff, and they're just as valid. I'm not part of that argument about who's right and who's wrong. It's silly.
Yeah. Nah, I agree 100%. A decade is a long time to really grasp something. You know what I mean? I feel like I would take your advice, that's for sure, if I ever needed your help on anything like that. As far as paranormal investigating goes, I mean, it's and actually this goes for a lot of things, and I believe I've even said this before, but you just have to get out there. Like there are a lot of people, paranormal investigators, who may investigate the paranormal from like their PC, but it's those who say, oh, this is wrong or that's wrong. It's only the naysayers that kind of say like, no, you're doing it wrong. Oh, you're not a good paranormal investigator. And I'm like, well, you can't really talk though.
Yeah, you can't. We're working in the realm of belief, and to not acknowledge that is to not be real about it.
Right. And I would never put down any paranormal investigator, like even if it comes down to an orb that they've posted on social media or something like that. I'm not going to turn around and say, that's a piece of dust, take it down, that's stupid. Like, come on now. That's not, because I also believe that there are some orbs, and even if it's 0.01% chance that is a spirit, you know what I mean? Like, let other people decide for themselves.
And that's something that I really love about your show, and why I haven't reached out to a lot of other paranormal investigators, is I want to talk to someone who's sincere and genuine.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there just like, what was that? What was that? Flash, flash, flash,
Yeah. And I can get like that. and I realize that when I'm editing, I'm like,
but
this is embarrassing.
About it. You're not setting stuff up. You're not faking it. You're sincere about it. I'm saying that I think a lot of those other channels are just full of shit.
There's definitely a few. And also, I will say this, I know that there's investigators out there with a big following that create the energy themselves.
Yes, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't go into haunted buildings and look for ghosts. They go in there, they do whatever they do to that place. Like, and I'm not talking about setting up booby traps and stuff like that. Spiritually, they'll go in there and they will literally create that energy.
Just rile up the energy. Like basically go in there with a fork and stir everything up. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. They disturb that entire area so they can get the results that they want.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should be saying that because I don't want anybody else doing that. I like to go into a place and be as respectful as possible. And if something wants to communicate, great, someone wants to communicate. But when you get desperate and you need that, and the energy is there, the spirits are there, you know what I mean? Because as you said, you don't have to be in a particular place. Like they're everywhere. You know what I mean? That's another thing. A lot of people say, I mean, when I done the episodes where I went to Borderline, which was where like a mass shooting happened. It was only a couple streets down from where I lived, and I used to go to that bar all the time. And it was, I believe it was I think it was 2 years after the shooting happened. The bar was set to be demolished. I went there to do an investigation. I didn't go inside or anything like that. I walked around. I was as respectful as possible. And that video, I lost a lot of friends over as well in the paranormal community. They were like, why are you going to a place like this? It's disrespectful. It's this, like, you should have more morals. And I'm just like, no, you guys didn't watch the whole episode then. If that's what you guys are thinking, that I wasn't respectful, like I literally had to leave because I was breaking down. Like when you're actually there in that moment, you know, it's crazy. Like, but yeah, a lot of people would say, like, why don't you go and investigate these bigger places? Why don't you go and investigate this place, that place? For example, I investigated the Washoe Club, probably one of the most expensive investigations that I've done to date. And there wasn't that much there, you know, sadly. It could be totally different for another investigator going in there, just depending on what the energy is like that day, just depending if they want to communicate with you. But yeah, I like to go to lesser known places because I feel like the energy is less disrupted, and they're usually, I get the best results from those kind of low-key places that not many people are going in and just investigating after investigation after investigation, because as much as that stirs things up, sometimes I feel like when you go into, you know, like take the Washoe Club, for example, again, when I go in there and I'm like, hello, like it's another investigator, like, can you touch this device? Like, you know what to do.
They're
I don't even have to explain this. Like, like they're just like, leave me alone.
Totally. You would imagine, because they don't change. This is what I've learned from doing mediumship for clients and talking to, like I said, my own father and recently deceased loved ones of clients. They're the same person.
Yeah.
Nothing is different. They're just invisible. That's it. You just can't see them. Everything else is the same. Their sense of humor is the same. Their energy is the same. It's all the same. You know, and they're, so my point is they're people, right? And if someone was bugging you every day, like, hey, would you do this? Hey, would you do this? Hey, would you do this?
Yeah.
Get sick of it. But when you go to places that haven't been disturbed, there's probably energy there that's like ready to interact.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, imagine yourself on like a deserted island.
Yeah.
You've been there for so long with nobody to talk to, and then somebody comes in and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's also comforting. Yeah.
Okay, I want to jump backwards real quick and go to time. Speaking of time skips, let's skip back in time and talk about time skips again for a moment, because something crazy has been happening that I want to tell you about. Okay. Now, I do sometimes talk about my clients on the show. I'm never going to give names, obviously. I'll share interesting stories. But I've had 3 clients in a row recently tell me that they are 100% sure that they skipped to another timeline and they're in the wrong place, with very, very, very compelling stories. It's nuts. And one of them,
much in time.
So one of them, here's her story. She went to bed one night. I'm simplifying. She went to bed one night as a 33-year-old, woke up the next day as a 6-year-old in her mom's bed again, and then relived her life, telling the story the whole time, saying, I was a grown-up, I had kids, what is going on here? And so it's stories like that. And I've had 3 of them in the last few months.
Well, you know that you hear a lot of those stories that are like, but it's like newborns, like toddlers and things like that, that are like, they had these past lives and they're saying, or even it's like recycled, so it's like the baby is now the new grandpa. Does that make sense? The baby used to be the grandpa. Like, this is just one story, and the woman was like changing the baby's diaper, and the baby turned around to her and said, I remember when I used to change your diapers. Like, and
Wow.
then as like that, as the baby started growing up, it was like telling all these different stories, knew who her grandma was, like everything without seeing pictures. I think this is really similar. Like, imagine if that isn't a past life, because people just go, oh, it's a past life. Imagine if that the grandpa just skipped and went
That's what I
back
believe
in
is happening.
time.
I actually believe that I have done it myself. I'm pretty sure I have skipped timelines.
Wow. Okay.
So there was a time when I was living in San Francisco again. I was 20, 21. I'm
Uh-huh.
38 now, so
Okay.
pardon me for not remembering this perfectly, but I was either 20 or 21, and I was living at the dorms, and I was going to walk to school. School was directly across the street. Now, if in San Francisco, I don't know if you've ever been there, but the fog is no joke. That's
Right.
not like a stereotype. Like, you cannot see 2 inches in front of your face when that
Right.
fog rolls in. So, but it was right across the street. Whatever. So, and it's 5:30 in the morning, and I'm
Yeah.
like putting on my uniform, and I'm fucking trying to go to school, and I'm rushing, right? So I walk in the middle of the street, and because everything's wet from the fog, it's slippery. It didn't rain. It's just dense, wet fog. So in the middle of the street, I slipped and I fell. And at the moment that I slipped and I fell, a ambulance going a zillion miles an hour with its fucking sirens blading comes around the corner right at me. And the last thing I remember seeing is that tire, like right in front of my face. And then a moment after that, I was just up, and the guy was asking me, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I guess." I have no idea how I got off the ground. No idea whatsoever. And so that kind of brought me to this idea that I discussed in another podcast with Hagen von Tulian about quantum immortality. The
Okay.
idea that your consciousness at the moment of death may just jump to another timeline in which you didn't die.
Wow. That's a lot to take in, because I've never thought about that before.
I mean, this we could do a whole episode on just the
Yeah.
possibilities here. I don't have a solid explanation about that. I have a lot of
Yeah.
theories. I even have a graph. If you join my Patreon, I've mapped this out in a graph kind of way that you can see how we move timelines and how it can happen, and explain a bit about it. But again, like, these are my own theories.
Dang. That is actually, there's so much about this world that we just do not understand. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
we are so puny compared to like everything else that is out there. Like, the fact that we're even trying to figure this out
What even are
is,
we?
yeah.
What is going on here? This is crazy.
No, it's true though. It's freaking true. Like, man, we are just the fact that we're even trying to like comprehend what living is, what energy is, what's life is. I feel like we're onto something. I don't know if we'll ever figure it out in our lifetime or ever,
It's
because we'll probably
beyond
go
our
extinct.
ability currently to comprehend, is what I think.
Yeah, and
Essentially,
yeah,
like here's one. Just chew on this, okay? And people, I think people hear this a lot, and then just they throw the information away because it's too much to deal with, okay? But
okay.
from the standpoint of neuroscience, okay, you are not interacting with me right now. You're interacting with a version of me that your brain created. And I am not interacting with the real you. I'm interacting with a version of you that my brain created, and created a holographic projection and put it out there. None of this is real. It is created entirely in your brain.
That is perfect. That makes actual so much sense.
And
Like,
that's just how reality works.
we are living in virtual reality, and we think that this
Yeah.
virtual reality, like the whole meta life or meta world,
Right?
is a new thing. We do it every single
What
day.
if we all get sucked into the metaverse, and then this world becomes the spirit world to that world? What?
I need to change careers. That's all I'm saying.
Fuck, this just shit's fucking wacky. And it's interesting because we're at this time in history where we're gaining a bit of enough scientific understanding to say, okay, yeah, like, these are possibilities. Dark matter life forms are a possibility. It's a fancy word for ghost. You know what I mean? All of these things are real, and we're coming to this realization that we have no fucking idea what's going on here.
No,
Like,
I
as
know.
much as
And
we know, we also don't know shit.
yeah, and I think that a lot of people don't want to admit that, but it's, nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
When you're at an airport, like, and you think that everybody's professional, everybody's got everything under control, like 90% of those people are just showing up to work, getting their shit done and leaving, kind of thing. It's kind of the same. I could go into this like way deeper. I love that we've touched on this topic of, this time slip. It's such an interesting topic, and I feel like this
Yeah.
could be a completely different episodes. But I also want to know if that's kind of, because you could also say another theory is that's where spirits coming from. They come through this
Hmm.
time slip and
Yep.
then they straight back out. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So maybe, and that was a true story that the ambulance coming
Oh
towards
yeah,
you.
100%.
Okay,
That
okay,
happened.
so
Yeah.
okay, just double checking that that wasn't just like a memory, but it
No, no,
was
no,
like
that
actually
happened.
that. Okay, so yeah, like you never know, like maybe when that happens for that split second where you didn't understand what was going on because you weren't really conscious, maybe somebody else saw something that you're not aware
But
of
nobody
to
saw
this day.
anything because of the fog. That's
Oh
the
yeah, that's
thing.
true. The fog.
Nobody saw
Yeah.
anything. I didn't see
Yeah,
the
that's
ambulance
right.
coming. I couldn't see anything all around me. And then I went from on the ground to standing, and then the window of the ambulance was right here. And the guy was like, "Holy shit, man, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And I just went to school.
Yeah.
But
And
I
I
have
also,
no, just like your dad had no recollection of going downstairs. I have no recollection of getting
yeah.
up.
Well, he's got another story as well, which is kind of similar to yours, but I guess this is more touching upon instead of time slips, but more kind of like spiritual guides or what people call guardian angels, that kind
Hmm.
of thing, like
Hmm.
protectors. But in Edinburgh Castle is in Scotland, and it's on top of this massive like cliff edge. And when he was younger, he was up there, he was climbing the rocks like along the castle wall, and he fell. And that drop is insane. Like there's so many rocks going right down there. And he said he literally just had his hands like over his head. And next thing you knew, he was just awake, not a scratch on him, not a bump on him. Like
Wow.
that is impossible.
No, it's
Like, did
impossible. Yeah.
anybody see that? Like, like that's my question. Did anybody see that kid flying down like
Yeah.
the side of the castle? Like, and no, but I don't think anybody went to make sure he was okay or anything like that. He just literally got up, dusted himself off, and went on with his life. And that was one of my earlier memories, talking like spiritual with my dad. Him telling me that story and being like, "We have protectors." You know what I mean? Like,
And they
um,
aren't bound by time and space.
no,
They're
exactly.
not physical, and so they're not bound by those physical dimensions. They can work inside and outside of time and space.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
totally
yeah,
agree.
I mean, you could have time slips caused by one thing, and then like different kinds of time slips, But I definitely think that sometimes in those life or death situations, like with me, and even with you as a kid, like getting lost is a big deal when you're
Mhm.
small. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Those are the moments when our spirit guides intervene, and we
yeah,
don't really, if we're smart enough, if we're open enough, hopefully then you see it for what it is, and you open yourself up to that
yeah,
world, because that's, not to be preachy or anything, but the whole reason
yeah.
I do this, the whole reason the show exists, the whole reason my brand, whatever exists, is to help people see that this is real and it's good for you. Like it's something that is available. It's an aspect of reality that's available to you. And if you're like a lot of people, raised to ignore it, you've
Yeah.
cut yourself off to this thing that can be like, yes, it can be scary, but it can also be so wonderful. And I know that I've become like a better, happier person through my
Yeah.
interactions with the spirit realm.
And I also think it's a lot to do with like, I think everybody has this ability, to be, connect with their spirit guides and things like that. I think it comes easier to some people. I feel like it came easy to me, and it kind of sounds like it may have came searching for you as well,
Yeah, 100%.
almost like you're chosen instead of having to go out there and search for it.
Yeah.
Um, and as a child, a lot of it goes down to imagination. Oh, you had a bad dream, things like that. And I just don't know. I don't have any kids, but I just don't know how I'm going to handle that. Like, if that time does come, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have kids, correct?
I have a 5-year-old. Yeah.
So I don't know, like maybe you could give people some advice if a kid comes and says, "Hey, I saw something in my room." Like, what do you do in that moment? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I would have to believe them, but it's because there's so
Unfortunately,
many
that
times.
the answer to that question lies in the subconscious belief system of the parent.
Yeah,
you
Well,
know.
yeah.
And
Well,
that's
here,
because there's things that are true, then there's also like, okay, but do we talk about Santa Claus? Do we only talk about what's true?
right,
Do we try and protect
right.
them from things? Like, this is a complicated question.
And there's just something not right within that, telling a child that, that's not real. And I feel like growing up, I grew up Catholic, and all that stuff. And it was very much so like if I had an experience, it was like they acknowledged it, but they didn't discuss it. It was kind
Yeah.
of like, what did she just say? Or what just happened? Like, and then it was just move on. When I was really young, I'm talking like really young, I would say that I could see like my nana's dad and things like that in the sky. I don't remember any of this, like, but there was just a lot of very strange, stories surrounding me as a child. And then as I got older, it was really my dad who like he was like really into the conversation, like, yes, let's talk about this because I've experienced that before, and this is what I believe that it is. He simplified things and he made it really easy to understand until obviously I was ready. Now we on the phone we talk about aliens all day long.
That's awesome. That's so
but
cool.
as I got into like the teenage years, my mom started to realize like this isn't just her imagination. Like this isn't just, oh, she's going through a thing. It was real times I would have to shut myself off, like all of my emotions off
Mhm.
to try and not be contacted. And I'm not saying that I'm like a psychic medium or anything like that, because I've not really explored that side yet, but I've always been really sensitive to spirits. And sometimes as a teenager, I would have to just completely cut off all my emotions because I didn't want, it was too much to handle and I didn't understand it,
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was about 18 that I started to explore it again. And it just came every single time I would open that door slightly, it was like the floodgates opened,
Yep.
and things would be happening 24/7. The
Yep.
more you acknowledge it, the more, it keeps happening.
When you
And
start noticing the paranormal starts noticing you.
1000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. And that's really what it is. And it's that when that door is open in your mind, you know, I agree with you. It did come very easy to me. And
Mhm.
and I know that is frustrating to some of my friends. And
Yeah.
I'm not like, I don't want to say it like I think so many people have this I am the chosen one attitude about their
Yeah.
spiritual gifts, and I can't stand that. I
Right.
teach people
Right.
anybody
Same.
can do this.
Yeah.
It's just like some people are born with big muscles. Okay. It's just some people are strong, some people are very, very smart,
Yeah.
some people are very, very psychic, but anybody can do all three of these things. You just need to work at it maybe at a different level than some other people do. But when I started working with meditation, for example, I know this is something that a lot of people spend their whole life trying to master. And for me, it was just
Yeah.
it was easy to find
Yeah.
a place, like to find the vector space in your mind, that kernel of emptiness and silence. And
Absolutely.
that's the door. That
Mhm.
space of timelessness and emptiness and silence, that is the door. um and so I found it pretty quickly and I was able to open it. And but I think everybody that is like that at some point in their lives goes through a period where they feel like they need to turn it off because it's overwhelming. It's definitely happened to me a couple of times. And I
And
always go back to it, but like sometimes I need to back away. We've
yeah.
got life stuff to do.
Yeah. I just want to say as well, like, I mean, me personally, I don't know about you, but I'm surrounded by skeptics. Like my family, felt like at some point we're like skeptics. My best friends, like all my friends growing up, I was always the weird kid, that was like, let's go check out this abandoned building. Or, I would come into class and be like, oh, just saw a ghost. What's your ghost stories? Come on, everyone tell you ghost stories. And everyone's like, we don't have ghost stories. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but it's that kind of thing. Like even my fiance,
Mhm.
he was brought up religious and stuff like that. He doesn't, you know he's not into it. He's like, I would rather just not know. Which, so yeah, I
Yeah.
call him a skeptic, but it kind of works on my half because when I'm editing and I'm like uncertain about something or like really certain about something, like, oh my gosh, that was a straight up voice that just said this. And
Mhm.
then I'll let him listen. And if he can't debunk it.
So he's your
I know that I
Scully.
have, then I know that I have a good piece of evidence on my hands there. So I'm always just trying to get him to believe. But now there's been a few weird times, like things that he can't explain, like ghost cat, for example. In our last apartment, like I keep on saying I have a ghost cat. He's like, she's crazy, like, and I would be like, oh, so ghost cat today, and yeah, and it just literally, it looks like a little black cat. It's like a shadow, and I always see it at the corner of my eye, and it just runs past, and like that's it. And sometimes it like knocks things. There was one time I almost thought, like, I have a black cat, by the way, but it's not the same because I always think it's her, and then I look and she's sitting right there.
It's your cat astral projecting.
Yeah, it's just the time slip on that black cat. But yeah, there's one time like there was like, it looked like a black cat like drinking water at the water bowl, and I'm like walking by it, and then it just darts across, and it's right in front of me, and I literally like jump over it because I think it's my black cat, and then and then it just disappears, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's how strong an image it was, you know? And yeah, it was like the week before we moved out of our apartment, which was just at the beginning of last year technically now because it's 2022. But yeah, me and my fiance were sitting on the couch, and there's a coffee table in front of us, and all of a sudden at the corner of my eye I just see a ghost cat go by, and I turned around to him and I went, you want to know what I just saw? And he went, ghost cat. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I saw it too. And I was like,
shit.
oh my God, like I'm so happy. Like he was like, that, like he was like, that's the like I saw that, like that was there, and he was kind of freaked out by it, but it gave me a lot of peace to go, I'm not crazy, like. And I was really hoping that ghost cat would follow us into our new house, but ghost cat's gone, so ghost cat's still haunting that apartment, surely.
I would miss ghost cat too.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that we're crazy. Clearly, I don't think we're crazy. I've kind of dedicated my life to this, so have you. And I do think that it's going to be people like us, kind of doing something akin to the Ghostbusters. It's going to be silly. People are going to laugh at us, whatever. I don't give a shit at all because this is so much fun. And I get to know things that other people don't know. And I get a lot of peace out of it. And I get a lot of, I get a lot of advice. Like I used to make all the wrong decisions. Now I just ask my spirit guides and they're like, bro, here's what you do. And I do that thing and everything goes my way. It's, and I've been doing that for so many years now, like following my synchronicities, that like my life is wonderful. And I remember when it wasn't, because I didn't open myself up to all this stuff, and I was still pushing back against it. So, I think that this field of science, because it is a science. I mean, it's my belief that astrology is a science too. That these are measurable phenomena, but we've got another 50, 100 years to go of people like us pushing for it before anyone starts to really take it seriously. But I mean, I don't know, man. It's kind of happening now. More and more people are getting interested.
I think that that's true. I think that the pendulum's swinging, and the paranormal used to be like much bigger, and now I'm really starting to see a rise in the paranormal again. And I'm actually really glad that I did start my YouTube channel and things like that when I did, because I mean, I see that people are passionate about it too. And what you were saying about how it brings you joy and it brings you happiness, and that is the absolute main thing about this. You know what I mean? Paranormal investigating for me, like when I first started off, I mean, I'd been smoking cigarettes since I was 13 years old, and I always tried to quit, and I could never quit my entire life. Honestly, like my only regret in life was that, because you shouldn't smoke, it's bad for your health. But and then I had a crazy experience in February last year where my heart, something happened to my heart. It started beating at like 235 beats per minute. And I got taken into the emergency room, and they had to basically like euthanize me and then bring me back. And that was insane, like feeling death, like for the first time, like
I mean,
fully.
you went through the door.
Yeah,
I did. The door. Oh man,
dude, like I can't even imagine. I can't. I don't know. The only way that I can describe death is literally like, I've only been on one roller coaster in my entire life because I have a heart problem. But you're at the top of the, when you're at the top of a roller coaster and it's just like dark, like if you're in a tunnel, like the Jurassic World ride at Universal, if you've ever been there, and you go like right down at the very end, that's exactly what it feels like. Everything just goes dark and you just feel like, and like that's the feeling.
That's actually
And
very much the feeling I get when I go deep into meditation. It's
really,
very similar to what
wow.
you're describing. Yeah.
I do not like the feeling at all. I don't like that feeling at all.
It's scary. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And then once I woke up from that and I was doing good, I just said, never smoking a cigarette again in my life. Another reason for that as well, because I was like, why? When I'm doing investigations, all I want to do is investigate. I don't want to have to jump outside every like 20 on minutes, like for a cigarette. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep. Also, smoke will have an effect. I mean, sage has an effect. Incense has an effect. Any kind of
yeah,
smoke is going to have an effect.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Actually, I've never really thought about that too much. Yeah. The whole, I feel like investigating has made me such a better person. Like I feel
Yeah.
like this journey has made me such a better person. And anybody who's trolling or hating or anything like that, which I get all the time, it's just
Yeah, but they're unhappy people. That's why they're doing that.
But even that, like I used
Yeah.
to, when people used to hate the very beginning, I used to get so worked up about it, like so worked up about it.
You can't read the
And now I
comments.
don't. Like now, no, I read the comments and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
lol. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I feel sorry for you. But no, I can handle it so much better the way I deal with negative people. I can handle that so much better than I used to. And I used to be self-conscious about the way I looked and all this kind of stuff, self-image. When I started going on camera, and you're investigating in dirty, dark, damp places, your face is a mess, like your hair's all frizzy. It's, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, and when I'm editing, like, I'm just like, wow, I look crazy, but I had fun. And not one person has said, Jade, you might not want to post that because you looked a certain way. You know what I mean?
If people could eavesdrop on my client sessions, they would be like, oh, these motherfuckers are crazy. That's what's going on here. But no, we're not crazy. We're just speaking a different language than you're open to. That's
definitely.
All it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, on that note, Jade, I've got to get going. Thank you so much for being on the show. That was really a lot of fun. And I feel like we need to do a part 2 because I've got to get going. I've got clients, but like there's so much more to talk about.
There's so much more to talk about. Yeah, I could talk with you all day about this kind of stuff. So anytime you need me back on, I will be here.
Awesome. Let's do it. All right. Thank you so much again. And I will link all of your socials and everything. So if people want to get in touch with you or follow you on social media, that'll all be in the description. Thank you everybody for listening and have a wonderful night.